All right, welcome everybody. And today we are talking about going pro. As you will have no doubt heard me going on and on and on with good justification about the London conference. And the London conference has been just a total watershed in terms of just showing fellow mentorees just like yourselves who have gone pro. And when I say go pro, I don't mean professional as in full time. There is a huge difference. People confuse going full time with going pro. Nothing could be further from the truth. There are plenty of people who are full time in internet marketing, but they are not pro. And today I want to focus on going pro. And for the rest of our time together, I want to focus about going pro. Because I think when you see what is, I was literally jumping off stage in the breaks and picking out mentorees and shaking them by the shoulders and saying, see what I mean, see what I mean. And this is what it's all about. It's all about going pro. But first, let's hear from Kevin.
Could you talk a bit about the early process? How can we help us appreciate this early experience, these lean years, these very difficult years leading up to the ultimate prize?
There is no prize out there. The only prize is this one and what you feel and what you want to accomplish. And if you can, as you start out, these what could be lean years or could be fat years, I feel that I very often watch a lot of young people sort of meander around without any idea about why they're doing what they're doing. I mean, to want and to be ambitious and to want to be successful is not enough. That's just desire. To know what you want, to understand why you're doing it, to dedicate every breath in your body to achieve. If you feel you have something to give, if you feel that your particular talent is worth developing, is worth caring for, then there's nothing you can't achieve. You're going to grow up with your colleagues. You're going to watch them have success and watch them have failure, and you're going to watch how they deal with it. And they can be as much a teacher for you as anybody here, or anyone who's privileged enough to come here and speak to you.
Getting serious. That to me is the theme for today. And that Kevin Spacey thing, I saw that during the week and I thought, it is so true. There is such a difference between wanting to do internet marketing and actually going pro, being serious. And the amazing thing about the London conference was that not that lot up there who are, people engaged in the business of internet marketing, but the highlight for me was the mentorees who got up there on stage and talked about their business. Danny B, Sam Vidovine, Dan Dobos, Richard Cousins. All of these people who have gone pro. And that to me was the absolute highlight of that business. All of these presentations were superb, but if you have a look at Richard Cousins' session 11, the backroom internet marketing system, and look at what going pro is all about. Now, Richard competes in literally the toughest market online, without a doubt. The toughest market that's not like Viagra or something. The toughest real world, real product, real people market known to man. And he has built an organisation to tackle that market. And he went through at the London conference and showed you exactly what was involved in that organisation. Now, for most of you, you won't need the volume of people in that organisation because you don't compete in anywhere near as a competitive market. But if you want to take on any market on the planet, well, Richard showed you at the London conference exactly, step by step, what was involved in his organisation to compete at the highest level, to indeed go pro. And that was the amazing thing about this conference. Session after session after session of people showing you how to go pro. And unfortunately, a puppy is slaughtered every time one of you lot doesn't bother to look at the Mentoring by Ed blog, because you would have seen that you've had access to these videos for some time now. Another example of going pro. Going pro is not waiting for the information to come to you. It's seeking and testing that information. I first heard the term going pro in The War of Art. And there's in fact a whole section which is about, are you toying around being a writer? Or are you going to be a writer? And it involved certain key elements. Getting your ass in a chair and writing, for example, instead of reading about writing. National Writers Month is on at the moment, and I bet you there are a whole bunch of people who are getting their rocks off reading about all the new writing techniques and all the new software and all the new cool strategies, but they aren't actually writing their 1,667 words, the only thing that will get them to win that challenge. So I'm going to ask you straight out today, listening to this now or listening to this on the recording, are you an amateur or are you a professional? And remember, it's got nothing to do, as I'm about to prove to you, time commitment. Time commitment is irrelevant. Irrelevant. Most of the mentorees that we heard from at the London conference all started out with full-time jobs, doing other things, and they were focused, they knew what to do, and they just went pro. You can go pro, as I'll talk about later, on 5 30-minute sessions a week. But it's about your approach and about your realism. Now, there's nothing wrong with being an amateur. Nothing wrong at all. I'm an amateur photographer. I'm never going to go pro. I've had some success as an amateur photographer, but I don't confuse that for 1 second with making that my business and my life's work. I love it. In fact, I take some discipline to my photography, but I'm an amateur. I'm an amateur in that field, proudly and happily, and so you should be. For a lot of you, maybe you do want to be an amateur at internet marketing. You enjoy it, you enjoy the education, you enjoy the chats, love the forums, it's interesting for you. That's cool. No problems whatsoever. But don't be an amateur and expect pro results. Just don't. Don't expect it. And sadly, I see it again and again and again. And I see it in the types of questions that are asked. The most basic of basic information. If you're a pro, you're on top of the information in your industry. That's job one. And my God, we teach you that in the very first lessons of the challenge. We talk about market leadership. There was a great article that Seth Godin wrote today in the blog. If I had the chance, I would have included it in this presentation. But he talked about, there is no knight, there is no shining armor. People are saying, it's all very well for you to go self-publishing because you've got this huge audience. And he rightly pointed out, the audience didn't materialize. He's been practicing the market leadership formula, which, as we all know, and I've told you 100,000 times, is content times consistency. He is a living, breathing model of it. He blogs on that damn blog every single damn day. I think he might skip Sundays, but there is a blog post, rain, hail, shine, and has been for years. And before there were blogs, he wrote books. He produced. He put content that was worthy and interesting into the marketplace. He was pro. He was pro. Now, I can hear you asking, well, Ed, what's serious? What's professional? Good question, I hear you ask. I'm not going to leave you hanging. That's not my job. There are 3 things that are vital when it comes to going professional about your online business. If you're going to go pro, the first thing, and this is the other thing that came out of the London conference, every single person that was there saw that every single person who's done well has process. We had Pete Williams there at the seminar, and I tell you what, I was so glad that he was as jet lagged as I, and we were up at 5 a.m. each morning, because he was telling me about how he uses his virtual assistants. And I'd noticed over the previous weeks, he'd done some really cool stuff. Like he'd sent me a postcard of the photo with Anthony Robbins and myself and congratulating me. And it was just such nice touches. I also noticed how he was practicing market leadership in a couple of the areas he was involved in. And I said, Pete, you're doing brilliantly. What's the secret? And he, of course, very kindly shared with me, and he's set up a whole bunch of outsourcing processes, which his very well paid virtual assistant does for him, so he can audio dictate a whole bunch of stuff, and then she goes and posts it on the forums for him. Just genius, but it's process. My goodness, session 11, Richard Cousins, he has a process for everything. He has a process for everything. Because, funnily enough, he does the second thing, which is measuring. People need to measure. The reason people don't measure is because they're terrified. Because they're terrified of what the measurements will tell them. So they prefer, ignorance is indeed bliss when it comes to internet marketing or indeed any other business. It is truly bliss. But you can't take bliss to the bank. You can't buy stuff with bliss. If you want to be a happy amateur, go for it. Enjoy. Plug along in the dark. But unless you're serious about measurement, it still stuns me that when I ask somebody what's their conversion rate, a pro goes 3.7%. And will actually say, well, it depends on keyword. On this keyword, underwater kickboxing, it's actually 2.3%. But on buy underwater kickboxing training, it's actually 4.3%. Like that. It stuns me that people cannot just rattle off their conversion, the most basic of basic measures, their unique visitors a day. It stuns me that I have to ask, when I ask, what's your unique visitors? Oh, hang on, I'll look. It's measurement. That's what going pro is all about. And there's measurement in other areas too, as you'll see in Richard's session 11. You'll see that measurement goes to things like backlinks. He knows, now he doesn't know exactly, but he knows within a standard deviation that if he applies this process, then that will deliver him X plus minus Y backlinks. So if manual backlinking, he knows one team member is capable of doing 50 manual backlinks a day. So he takes it and it becomes math. Measuring becomes math. This business is psychology plus math. He goes pro. Look at Sam Vidavine's presentation, or Dan Dobos. He knows down to the second decimal place what every element of his seminar conversion process is. That's because pros measure. And finally, and this is equally as crucial as the other 3, is that pros focus. As I've said to you a million times, it's most people I know who are really successful at online marketing are barely functional human beings. Barely functional. I include myself in that. But when there is something to be done that is to move their business forward, they get their butt in the chair consistently, regularly, and they know what the next thing to do. That's why I put such an emphasis on CFTs, critical focus time. Call them what you will. The reason they're there is because when you've got a half hour, it stuns me still that people still sit around and go, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? You should know. Pros know. They know that they are starting off and writing this element. They know that they're initiating this backlinking. They know that they're filming this outsourcing process. When they've got a precious half hour, because maybe they're one of the professionals that only have 5 30-minute sessions a week to work on their business, they know that time is precious. And so they know instantly and immediately what needs to be done. So let's look at process in a bit more detail. As I said to you guys, it's math. It is absolute math. Here is your typical BLP column. To me, the only column that matters when it comes to Market Samurai, because frankly, every other element of this is out of your control. Well, that's not quite true. On-page factors are in your control, but they're either on or off. You've either got them right or you've stuffed it up. It's one or the other. That's it. There's no other way. And so, when you're starting a project and when you're looking for organic traffic, backlinks is your only tool. It is literally the only thing. Pros know this. Pros have 17 different ways. Look at Richard's session 11. He tells you. No secrets. He shows you all the different processes that he has with his back office system to click off for when he wants to tackle a market. And he's just sent me an email before this, just telling me I think he's up to number 6 in what is the most competitive market, and he's done it in 12 weeks because he understands this one thing, that backlinks are everything. People have to go pro on backlinks. They have to go pro. It's absolutely vital. We talk a lot about the E-myth, yet still people don't take it to heart. They don't realise that there needs to be a process for everything. Every element of your business must be a process. And the awesome thing about the London conference, and the good news is that you've got not 1, not 2, not 3, 4 different people who have shown you the processes for their business. Are you an amateur or are you going to go pro? And as I say, time and time again, it's got nothing to do with time. It's got everything to do with what you do in what I call critical focus time. This is not a unique concept to you. I go on about this all the time. And funnily enough, the people who are successful, are either using an alternative system and getting the same outcome. They're using things like Basecamp. They're using things like, any of these sorts of other elements. They're doing all sorts of different things. But they're doing something. They are doing something. In fact, Richard, again, session 11, shows you his project management system, and he uses an open source version, not of Basecamp, but something similar. And he uses it himself, but you can use Basecamp. Pete Williams used Basecamp. I think Sam Vidovine used Basecamp. But they use something because they track, or they use CFTs to concentrate. The reason you're not doing something equivalent of CFTs or CFTs, where you time yourself for 25 minutes and you log it down and you let people know what it is, the reason that you're not doing that is you're afraid of what it will tell you. That simply. You're afraid of what it will tell you. Now, I've mentioned this a couple of times and I want to emphasize it here. You can do this with just 5 30-minute sessions a week if you're intensely focused. And something I'm going to introduce as a new concept to you, if you're focused and ruthless. Ruthless. When you're in the testing phase, when you're trying to find a market that bites and has traffic, and it's always such a happy time when I'm working with somebody and they have a market that bites, because the difference, the analogy I have is fishing. when you're out there in the water and you had your line in there for a couple of hours, any vague change in the current, you think, oh, was that a nibble? Oh, potentially, was that a bite? You think, oh, that could be. But when you actually have a real bite on a fishing rod, you know it. It goes wham. And so too with markets. They go wham when you find one, and it works. And it happens every single day. And the reason that pros find these markets with more regularity is because they fail more regularly. It was great catching up with Dan last week. And, this is a guy who will test dozens and dozens of markets just in rapid fire succession till he finds one that bites, that gets traffic, so it's worth him spending the time on. We have indeed the 5 CFT process, which is what we use. That's what we do. But people don't get ruthless about it. If you think about it, if you are on a 5 CFT process a week, I should say, 5 30-minute sessions a week. If you're making $400 a month, why have I said 400? I've said 400 because that is what it takes to find a decent full-time outsourcer. And it's been fantastic. I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning his name. I don't think he'll worry about it. Josh Breitag, who's a mentoree, he is a sous chef. These people are the people that work the most on the planet. They literally work hours and hours and hours and hours. Like it's psycho. Literally psycho. And to watch him take off, he was always super enthusiastic, but to watch him take off when he got that first person working for him and he could pass off, he had somebody who's working for him 40 hours a week. They can work on it for 40 hours a week. And it was very gratifying to meet all these people in London that have been taught and got their start in the challenge. And they all use the challenge to teach. They all make their outsourcers do the challenge to teach them, which is very, very cool. But if you can get up to $400 a month with laser-like focus, think about this. If you, mate, that's like one affiliate sale a day. That's just one affiliate sale a day. $13.33. If you're ruthless about it, to me, that is what you need to aim for initially so that you can have somebody outsourcing your start. And everybody started out this way. Because realistically, they got real. And that's what I'm asking you today. I'm asking you to get real, get focused, get ruthless about being a pro in this business. Stop being an amateur and get pro. Now we've looked at focus. Focus is everything. And focus in an online business means focusing only on the thing that matters. And let's use the most classic example when you're testing markets. The only thing that's important about a market is backlinks. It's the only thing. I assume you followed, challenge methodology to set up use a WordPress direct blog. That's why I love them so much, because if you follow the methodology, you have got a theme word, you've got a bunch of category keywords, and they're there, and you're doing the job that matters. And so the site has been set up perfectly for on-page optimization. You've just followed that process and done it. I know assuming anything makes an ass out of you and me, but hey, that's what I'd like to hope. That's what I'd like to hope. And so once that you've done this, then think about it. In a new market, there's only one thing that matters. There's just one, and that's backlinks. You've just got to get lots of backlinks consistently. Now, people say, oh, what am I going to get penalised by Google because I've got lots and lots of backlinks? Well, you're probably dreaming if you're generating your own backlinks to think that you could create so many that you'd even come onto Google's attention. But what Google's looking for is consistency. If you put 1,000 backlinks into something on week 1, you better put 1,000 backlinks in week 2 and week 3 and week 4. Because the moment those backlinks drop off, Google is going to think, oh, well, that is not so relevant anymore. Now, you can back off over time, but it's consistency that matters, because Google's not penalising you. It just wants to deliver relevant information, and it knows that 99.999999% of everything that goes on the internet on any particular day is only relevant for that particular day, and so it gives high priority for that, and then it moves on. And so you, by having consistent linking, show that it's still relevant. That it's still relevant. Something that, I mentioned here and is so crucial is starting small. That to me is just vital. And starting small is what every one of these people did. Every single one. Every single person started small. That was it. They started making $1. And what I love about the London conference videos is that they show you what's next. And they show you that the difference between making $1 and making anything else is about going pro. It's about taking a professional attitude and approach to your market. And that, to me, is beyond vital. Now, let's see if I can get this back. Finally, wanted to make a point about managing and measuring. And again, you just see the consistent theme throughout all these presentations. That everybody who's gone pro measures. They measures. They know that conversion, bang, 3.2%. Unique visitors, 220 today. We average 220 over a week. Our peak day is Wednesday. Boom. That information is just there. This is the fuel of your business. And if you don't know it, you're not pro. You're not pro. You're just amateur. You're just playing at creating an online business. And it's cool to play. I've got no problem with people playing in business. I played around in all sorts of things for all sorts of times. But until you go pro, then, well, you're not. And if you're not going to be able to compete in any of these markets. And that, to me, is an absolute tragedy. So what's it going to be? Are you going to go pro? Or are you going to be an amateur? Really, I don't mind. I really don't mind either way. But if you were wanting to go pro, you could do worse than going and checking out those London conference videos and having a look at what going pro means and what pro is all about.